The black of space was endless, cold and silent. A small ship floated like a lonely bird among the stars. Inside the ship lived a widow from a distant alien race. Her eyes were tired, her body weak, but she held on to one reason to live. Her child. The child was small, fragile and quiet. He pressed his face against the glass, staring at the stars with wide, glowing eyes. He did not understand the danger waiting outside, but his mother did. She remembered the words spoken long ago, words that haunted her dreams. "No child of your kind will live past the next cycle," the voice had warned. The warning had come from a mystic elder before she escaped her ruined world. Her husband had already fallen in the war, and she had become a widow with no shield, no home, no hope. The prophecy said her child was doomed, and many believed it, but she refused to accept it. Still, fear lived in her heart like fire in dry wood. For weeks she had hidden in the shadows of forgotten moons. She jumped from one dead station to another, always looking behind. The enemies hunted her child, not because he was weak, but because inside him was something strange, something powerful. They feared what he could become. They wanted to end his life before it began. The ship's lights flickered. Fuel was almost gone. She whispered to her son in her alien tongue, "Do not be afraid, little one. I will find a safe place for you." But even as she spoke, her voice broke. She was not sure if any place in this galaxy was safe. Then came the signal. It was sudden, loud and sharp. Her ship's radio crackled with a strange voice. The language was old, but she understood. The widow's child will not see another dawn. The hunters are coming. Her heart raced. Her child looked at her, confused, sensing the fear in her trembling hands. Far away, in a dusty outpost near an asteroid belt, a human trader sat alone. He watched the galaxy news on a broken screen. Most stories bored him, but then a name caught his ear. The alien widow. Rumors said she carried a child with a curse, a child who would bring death to anyone who helped. The human leaned back, his eyes narrowing. He had seen many lies spread across space, but something about this story felt different. He remembered his own past. He remembered how the galaxy once cursed humans too, calling them weak, calling them expendable. He had fought hard to prove otherwise. Now he lived quietly, taking small jobs, hiding from the noise of war. Yet deep inside, he was restless, and when he heard of the widow and her doomed child, something stirred in him, something human. Meanwhile, the widow's ship drifted near the outpost. She was desperate, her ship broken, her fuel low. She landed in secret, hoping to buy food and supplies without drawing eyes. But eyes always watched. The moment she stepped out, cloaked figures followed her. The hunters had already arrived. The child stayed inside the ship, staring at the shadows moving outside. He did not cry, but his small hands clutched the seat tightly. He felt danger even if he could not name it. The widow moved fast, gathering supplies, but she felt the hunters drawing closer. Her heart pounded. Her mind screamed, "Not here, not now." And then she saw him, a human standing at the market's edge, watching her. His face was worn, scarred by old battles, but his eyes were sharp, alive. Their eyes met, just for a moment. In that moment, the human saw her fear, saw the truth she carried. He did not yet know what choice he would make. But he felt it. The story of the widow and her child had just entered his life. The hunters closed in. Shadows stretched across the ground, weapons hidden under dark cloaks. The widow clutched her supplies, holding them close. Her mind raced with a single thought. If my child is doomed, then I must fight to give him one more day. The human took one slow step forward. He could walk away. He could pretend he never saw her. But something in his chest would not let him. His hand brushed against the weapon at his belt. His jaw tightened. This was the beginning of a choice. A dangerous one. One that would change the fate of the widow, the child, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The widow felt the hunter's eyes on her. The human felt the weight of his decision. And the child, innocent and silent, looked at the stars. Unaware that his life now balanced on a blade of chance, the warning was true. The doom was close. But fate had placed a human in their path, and fate was never simple. The market air was heavy with smoke and fear. The widow clutched her bundle of supplies, her heart racing as shadows moved closer. The hunters walked with quiet steps, but their eyes were sharp like blades. They were patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her child was alone in the small ship, and she knew if she fell, the boy would be taken in an instant. At the far edge of the market, the human stood still. He watched the hunters, he watched the widow, and he felt a storm in his chest. He was no hero, not anymore. Once he had fought in human wars. Once he had believed in noble words. But years in the outer rim had taught him that noble words often ended in graves. Now he lived only for himself, trading scrap and fuel, staying alive in silence. And yet, when he saw the fear in the widow's eyes, something old inside him awoke. The hunters began to circle, their cloaks brushing the dust. One whispered, "Take the mother. Kill the child if he resists." The human heard the words. His jaw tightened, his hand drifted near his sidearm. He told himself he should walk away. It was none of his business. One step and he could be gone, safe, untouched. But his legs refused to move. The widow sensed the trap closing. Her alien skin shivered, her breath quickened. She tried to walk faster, but the hunters blocked her path. One stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. "Widow, your running ends here. Hand over the boy." Her eyes widened. Her hands clutched the supplies tighter. She whispered, "Never," and turned to run. The crowd scattered as the hunters reached for her. And that was the moment the human moved. His weapon cleared its holster with smooth speed. A flash of metal in the dusty light. A sharp sound cracked through the air. The nearest hunter fell back, his cloak tearing open, sparks flying from hidden armor. The market froze. Silence stretched. Then chaos erupted. The widow gasped. She had not expected the human to intervene. The hunters turned their gaze toward him. Their eyes glowed faintly, their mouths curled with hate. One hissed, "A human dares." The human smirked faintly, though his heart pounded. He said nothing, but his stance spoke for him. He would not let them pass. Blades of light cut the air. The hunters drew their weapons. The crowd screamed and fled as the human fired again. Dust and sparks filled the market. The widow dropped her bundle, running toward her ship. Her child's face appeared in the small window, his glowing eyes wide with terror. The human covered her path, firing, dodging, moving with old skill. He had promised himself never to fight again. Yet here he was, protecting strangers. One hunter leapt forward, blade raised. The human blocked. Their weapons clashed, light against steel. He gritted his teeth. His muscles burned, but he forced the hunter back. He glanced at the ship, saw the child watching, and felt a strange strength inside him. This was not just a fight. This was a decision. If he chose to walk away now, the child would die. The widow would fall. If he chose to stay, his life would never be the same. The widow reached the ship, her voice sharp. "Come inside." The human backed toward her, still firing, still shielding. Finally, he leapt aboard, the ramp closing just as a blade struck the metal behind him. The ship shook as it lifted, engines screaming. The hunters shouted, their voices lost in the roar of fire, and then silence, the ship breaking free into the stars. Inside, the widow collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Her child ran into her arms, clinging to her. The human leaned against the cold metal, sweat on his brow, his chest heaving. He looked at them both, then looked away. He had saved them, but now he was trapped in their storm. The widow studied him with wary eyes. Her voice was low, almost broken. "Why, human? Why risk your life for us?" He shrugged, his voice rough. Didn't think about it, just moved. But inside he knew it was more than that. He had seen the child's eyes, glowing with innocence and mystery. He had felt the prophecy in the air, though he did not understand it. The ship drifted into dark space. The human sat quietly listening to the faint hum of engines. He knew the hunters would not stop, they would follow. They would come again. By choosing to help, He had placed himself on their list. He thought of the words he had overheard. The widow's child will not see another dawn. And he felt anger burn in his chest. The widow placed her hand gently on her child's head. Her voice was soft but firm. We cannot trust anyone, not even you. But for now, thank you. The human nodded, though her words cut deep. He had chosen to protect them, yet he was still a stranger. The child, however, stared at him, silent, glowing eyes fixed on his face. There was no fear in that gaze, only curiosity, only hope. The human sighed. He knew in that moment his choice was final. He would not abandon them no matter what storm was coming. For the first time in years, he had something to fight for again. The widow's child was doomed, the galaxy said. But now, with a human standing beside him, doom might not be so certain. The ship drifted through the dark, far from the market where blood and fire had almost claimed them. Inside, silence pressed against the walls, broken only by the soft hum of engines. The widow sat with her child, arms wrapped around him as if her touch alone could shield him from the whole galaxy. The human sat apart, leaning against the cold wall, his mind heavy with what he had done. He had killed again, fought again, broken his promise of peace, and for what? For a widow he did not know, for a child cursed by prophecy. He told himself he should leave at the next port, find another ship, vanish before the hunters returned. But every time he looked at the boy, he knew he would not walk away. The boy's glowing eyes were strange yet innocent. They carried silence, but also something hidden, something deep. The human could not explain it. It was like standing at the edge of a storm, waiting for thunder to break. Hours passed. The widow whispered songs in her alien tongue. The boy finally closed his eyes, his small body relaxing in sleep. The human almost drifted into rest himself, when suddenly the boy cried out. His body jerked. His skin glowed with faint burning marks. The widow gasped, holding him tight. Tears spilling down her face, the human rushed forward, alarm flashing through his mind. What's happening to him? He demanded. The widow shook her head, her voice trembling. It begins too soon. It begins. The boy's skin burned with strange lines. Like fire under glass, the human reached out, but the widow pulled back. No, his blood is dangerous, the boy screamed, his small voice echoing in the small ship. Then, as suddenly as it came, the glow faded, leaving him limp and trembling. The human stared at the boy, then at the widow. What is inside him? He asked, his voice low, serious. The widow's lips trembled. She held her child close. A curse or a gift, I do not know. But the prophecy was clear. No child of his blood will survive. The galaxy fears him. They believe he is doom itself. The human frowned. Doom, he's just a boy. But even as he said it, he could not forget the light, the burning lines, the raw power that had flared in the child's skin. The widow's eyes were dark, heavy with sorrow. My husband carried the same power. It burned him in battle, made him strong, but it also killed him. It eats from the inside. Only a few cycles before death, that is why they say no child will survive. The power consumes them before they grow. Her voice broke, her hands shaking as she stroked her child's hair. I thought by running, by hiding, I could change it. But already it begins too soon, far too soon. The human was silent. His thoughts racing, he had seen strange weapons. He had seen machines with fire in their cores, but never had he seen power like this. Alive inside flesh, if the boy survived, he could be a weapon or a savior. And that was why the hunters would never stop. The boy opened his eyes slowly, weak but alive. He looked at the human, glowing eyes steady, and whispered in broken human speech. Hurts. The human felt his chest tighten. He knelt closer. It's all right, kid. You're safe for now. The widow's gaze softened, but only for a breath, then hardened again. You do not understand. No safe place exists as long as he breathes. The hunters will come, both humans and my kind. They all want him gone. The human leaned back, his fists clenched. So you want me to leave after what I saw? After I fought for you? The widow closed her eyes, pain in her face. No, I do not want you to leave, but I fear what comes with you. Every time someone stands with us, they die. The human smirked faintly, a bitter smile. Then maybe I'm already dead. Silence filled the ship, heavy and sharp. Later, as the boy slept again, the human sat awake, staring at the stars through the small viewport. The widow joined him quietly, her voice soft. You still do not ask why you helped us? He shrugged, eyes fixed on the endless black. Maybe I was tired of watching the strong crush the weak. Maybe I saw a fight worth picking. The widow studied him, then whispered, "Or maybe fate chose you." The human scoffed, but her words stayed in his mind, circling like fireflies in the dark. As the ship drifted, alarms suddenly blared. A red light flashed. The engines screamed. The human jumped up, rushing to the controls. "What now?" The widow's eyes widened. "They found us." Outside in the dark void, shapes moved. Sleek hunter ships cutting through space like knives. The boy stirred, his skin glowing faintly again, as if his body sensed the danger before his mind did. The human's teeth clenched, his hand tight on the controls. "Then it's decided," he muttered. "If they want him, they'll have to go through me." The widow looked at him in shock. She saw no hesitation in his face, only the fire of a man who had already chosen his side. Her heart trembled, because for the first time, she wondered if the prophecy was wrong. Maybe her child was not doomed to die. Maybe his fate had changed the moment a human chose to fight for him. The hunter ships closed in, their shadows falling over the widow's small vessel. The child's secret was awake now, and the galaxy would soon know it, but the human was ready, and the fight was only beginning. The stars outside stretched like silver rivers as the ship fled through dark space. Behind them, hunter ships followed, their lights flashing like cold eyes. The widow gripped the seat, her child held close, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. They will follow until we are ashes." The human's hands moved quickly over the controls, his voice steady. "Then we make them stop." The small ship shook as enemy fire brushed past, bright streaks cutting across the black. The boy stirred in his mother's arms, his skin glowing faintly. The human glanced at him, jaw tight. "Not now, kid, hold it in," the widow whispered. "He cannot control it, not yet. It wakes when danger comes." The hunters pressed closer. Fast and silent, the human flipped a switch, releasing old flares from the ship's belly. Light burst behind them, blinding one of the hunter ships, forcing it to spin away. Two more kept their aim. Their weapons glowing, the human steered sharply. The ship groaned, but somehow held. They slipped into the shadow of an asteroid field, rocks spinning like a graveyard in space. The hunters slowed, careful of the stones. The human's voice was sharp. "We hide here. Wait for their mistake." The widow shook her head, her fear deep. "You do not know them. They never make mistakes. They are shadows, always watching, always waiting." The boy pressed his head into her chest, glowing eyes half closed, whispering words in his alien tongue. Words the human did not understand, but he could feel the fear inside the small body, and anger grew inside him. Hours passed in silence, the hunters searching through the rocks. The widow dozed, her child finally resting. The human kept watch, eyes never leaving the dark outside. Every shadow looked like danger, every spark looked like death. He thought of his past, battles fought in human wars, enemies that were cruel but predictable. These hunters were different. They moved like ghosts, no sound, no mercy, and he wondered if even his choice to fight for the child could stand against them. Then came the whispers. The ship's comms crackled, a voice sliding through the static. The widow's child breathed still. "Hand him over, human, and you may walk away." The human froze. His eyes narrowing, the voice was smooth, mocking, as if it knew his thoughts. "Why bleed for a child not your own? Why die for a widow who will never trust you?" The widow's eyes opened. She grabbed the comm, her voice sharp. "You will not have him." The voice laughed softly. "We already do. Every shadow belongs to us. Every whisper is ours." The human shut the comm, silence filling the ship again. His heart beat fast, his hands shook, but he did not show it. Instead, he whispered, "They want me to doubt. They want me to give in." The widow studied him, her voice quiet. "And do you?" He looked at her, then at the boy and shook his head. "No, not a chance." The ship drifted deeper into the asteroid field. The rocks shielded them, but also trapped them. Any wrong move would mean death. The boy stirred again, glowing faint lines spreading across his skin. The human whispered, "Not now, little one. Not now." But the boy's glow spread, and suddenly the ship's panels lit up, strange symbols flashing across the screens. The widow gasped. "He is connecting, not to machines." To the stones, outside the asteroid shifted, moving in strange patterns, as if answering the boy's silent call. The hunters saw it, their voices sharp over their own comms. "He is awakening. Capture him now," their ships fired. But the rocks themselves moved, blocking blasts, shielding the widow's vessel. The human's eyes widened. "He's doing this." The widow's tears fell as she whispered. "Yes, but it will burn him. Every use burns him." The human clenched his jaw, steering hard, using the moving rocks as cover. Together, ship and child, they slipped away, leaving the hunters spinning in the stone storm. Silence returned at last. The hunters lost in the chaos. The ship floated into a quiet sector. Far from the chase, the boy lay weak, his glow fading, his breath shallow. The widow held him close, her voice breaking. Every time he uses it, he loses more of himself. The human sat across from her, his voice firm. "Then we teach him. Control, strength, whatever it takes. We find a way." The widow shook her head. "There is no way. The prophecy cannot be broken." The human leaned forward, eyes hard. "Prophecies are chains, and chains are meant to break." For a moment, their eyes locked, a silent fire passing between them. The widow still carried doubt, but the human carried stubborn defiance. And in the middle, the child breathed softly, his small chest rising and falling, unaware of how the galaxy hunted him, unaware of the storm he carried inside, far away in the shadow of another system. The hunters regrouped. Their leader stood tall, his face hidden by a dark helm. His voice was cold as iron. "The human protects the widow. He must be broken. The child must be taken, or all will fall." Around him, the shadows bowed, their weapons ready, their patience endless. The hunt would not stop, not until the widow's child was gone, or the galaxy burned. The human sat alone at the viewport, staring into the endless black. He knew the shadows still watched, waiting for their chance. But he also knew this. He had made his choice, and no shadow would turn him back. The fight was only growing, the danger only rising. And somewhere in the silence, the child's secret still pulsed, waiting to awaken again. Night fell across the dusty outpost where the ship had landed in secret. The widow and her child stayed hidden inside, the small lights dim, their breaths quiet. The human kept watch near the door, his weapon close, his eyes never resting. For days they had fled, moving from one shadow to another, never safe, never free, but here for a short moment. The air was calm, almost peaceful. The boy slept in his mother's arms, his glow faint, weak from the power he had used in the asteroids. The widow stroked his hair, whispering songs in her alien tongue, songs of stars and rivers. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were still filled with fear. She knew peace was only a trick, a thin blanket covering sharp blades. The human sat silent, his thoughts heavy. He had carried them across danger, fought against hunters, defied shadows, yet inside him doubt stirred. He asked himself why he kept going, why he risked his life for a widow who barely trusted him. Every time he looked at the child, he found his answer. But answers were not enough to stop fear. Then came the knock. A slow, heavy sound at the door. The widow froze, holding her child tighter, her eyes wide. The human raised his weapon, stepping forward, every muscle tense. The knock came again, louder, sharper, and then a voice followed, rough but familiar. "Open up." "Old friend," the voice said. "It's me." The human blinked. His heart racing, he knew that voice. It belonged to someone from long ago, a comrade from the wars, a man he had fought beside, a man he had trusted with his life. For a moment his guard dropped. "Memories pulling at him," he whispered. "It can't be," and reached for the door. The widow hissed, "No, do not. Shadows wear many faces." But the human shook his head, his voice low. "I know him, I know this man." He opened the door, and there he was, an older, worn but alive. The comrade smiled faintly, though his eyes carried shadows. "Been a long time," he said, stepping inside. The human clasped his arm, a rush of old trust filling the room. The widow stayed back, her body tense, her eyes sharp. She felt danger in the man's gaze, but said nothing. The comrade looked around, his eyes falling on the child. For a moment silence stretched, and then he spoke, voice low. "So the stories are true. The widow's child lives." The human's jaw tightened. "He's just a boy." But the comrade shook his head. "No, he's more than that. And that is why you must hand him over," the widow gasped. Clutching her child, the human stepped back, disbelief cutting through him. "You're not serious," his comrade's face hardened. "I am. If you give him up, you can walk away free. Safe, no more hunters, no more blood. Just peace." The human's fists clenched, his voice sharp. "Peace bought with a child's life is no peace at all." The comrade sighed, almost sad. Then you are still the same fool I knew, always fighting battles that cannot be won, the widow whispered, her voice shaking with fury. I told you, human, no one can be trusted. Her words cut deep, but the human ignored them. His eyes locked on his old comrade. You fought beside me, he said, his voice raw. You saved my life once, and now you ask me to kill this boy. The comrade looked away, shame flickering across his face. I saved you then because it mattered. This does not. This child will only bring death to us all. The human raised his weapon slowly, not at the comrade, but at the ground between them. His voice was steady, cold. Leave before I forget we were ever brothers. For a moment, the air froze, the widow holding her breath, the child stirring in his sleep. Then the comrade stepped back, his eyes dark, his voice bitter. You have chosen your grave, old friend, and when you lie in it, remember I tried to save you. He left without another word, the door closing behind him, silence heavy in the room. The widow glared at the human, her voice sharp. You see now? Even your own kind will betray you, even those you loved. The human sat down heavily, his face pale, his hands shaking though he hid it. He whispered, Maybe so, but that does not change my choice. The widow looked at him long and hard, then turned away, holding her child close. Trust still did not live in her eyes, but something else did, a flicker of respect. A seed of belief. That night the human could not sleep. He thought of his old comrade, of the words spoken, of the offer of peace. He knew the hunters would return, stronger than before. And now, perhaps with humans at their side, the galaxy was closing in on them. Shadows from every corner, betrayal from every face. Yet when he looked at the boy, small and glowing even in sleep, he felt his heart harden with resolve. He whispered into the dark, They'll have to kill me first, far outside. In the shadows of space, the comrade met with the hunters. He bowed his head, his voice low. The human protects them, but he is weak. Break him, and the child is yours. The hunter leader's eyes gleamed through the helm, cold and endless. Then it begins, the leader said. The betrayal is complete. And in the silence between stars, war moved closer, waiting to strike. The stars outside burned like cold fire as the ship drifted through the void. Inside, silence pressed heavy on the walls, the widow holding her child close, the human sitting apart, his thoughts heavy with betrayal. He could still hear his old comrade's voice, still see the look in his eyes when he demanded the boy. The words cut deeper than any blade, and though the comrade was gone, the wound remained. The boy stirred in his sleep, his skin faintly glowing. The human watched, unease rising in his chest. He had seen the child's power once before, enough to move stones and shield them from hunters, but he had also seen the way it drained him, leaving him pale and weak. Now the glow returned, brighter this time, burning faint lines across the boy's skin. The widow gasped, her arms tightening around him. No, not now. It is too soon, she whispered, her voice breaking. The human moved closer, his voice sharp. What's happening? The widow's eyes filled with fear. The awakening, it begins. His blood cannot wait. It bursts from him. Whether he is ready or not, the boy cried out, his small body shaking, the glow spreading across the cabin walls. Strange symbols lit up on the panels, lights that no human had ever seen. The ship's controls flickered. The engines roared as if pulled by unseen hands. The human grabbed the controls, trying to steady them. But the ship did not obey. It was not the engines that moved them now. It was the boy outside. Shadows stirred, hunter ships waiting in silence, lit up as they felt the pulse of power. Their leader raised a hand, his voice sharp. He awakens, follow the light. Take him now. The hunters closed in, their ships cutting through space like knives. The widow saw them on the screens, her voice breaking. They are here. They always know, the human cursed under his breath. His hands fighting the wild controls, but the boy's glow only grew stronger, the air crackling with strange heat. The widow cried, If he cannot stop, the power will tear him apart. The human looked at the boy, saw the pain etched on his face, and his heart clenched. He knelt beside him, his voice steady. Listen to me, kid. You're not alone. Hold it. Fight it. You can. The boy's glowing eyes opened, filled with terror and confusion. He reached out with trembling fingers, touching the human's hand. For a moment the glow steadied, the shaking slowed. The human felt the heat burn into his skin, but he did not pull away. He held the boy's hand tight, whispering, I'm here, you're not alone. Then the hunters struck. Beams of light cut through the void, blasting against the ship. The widow screamed, shielding her child. The human jumped back to the controls. The boy's power flared and the blasts bent, twisting away as if the void itself rejected them. The hunters shouted in panic. He shields. He bends the storm. But the boy screamed again, the power burning brighter, his body trembling like a fragile flame. The human's heart raced. He knew the child could not last. He grabbed the comm, his voice a growl. You want him, you'll have to go through me. The hunters laughed, cruel and cold. You will die with him, human. The human's hands moved fast, guiding the ship into the heart of a broken moon. Jagged rocks spinning like blades, the hunters followed, their ships weaving through the debris, shadows chasing light. Inside, the boy collapsed. The glow flickering, fading, the widow's tears fell, her voice breaking. He cannot hold. He will burn. The human turned, his voice fierce. Then we teach him to fight it, not to burn, to control it. He placed his hand on the boy's chest, firm but gentle. Listen to me, kid. The power is not your master, you are its master. Hold it. Don't let it eat you. The boy's glowing eyes opened again, softer now, filled with something new. Not fear, but resolve. The glow steadied, the trembling slowed, the strange symbols across the panels dimmed. The ship answered once more to the human's touch, the engines obeying again. The widow gasped, holding her child close, whispering, He listened. But outside, the hunters still closed in, their leader's voice sharp. Do not let him escape. He is ours. The humans steered hard, weaving through the rocks, the hunters firing, stones exploding in bright fire. The boy, weak but awake, lifted his hand toward the screen, his voice small. There! A path opened through the broken moon, narrow, deadly but clear. The human grinned, sharp and fierce. Good eye, kid, and pushed the ship through. The hunters tried to follow, but the rocks closed in, crushing two ships, tearing another apart. The leader's voice roared in rage, but his ship could not pass. The widow's vessel burst free into open space, battered but alive. The human slumped back, sweat on his brow, his chest rising and falling. The widow kissed her child's head, her tears falling. You did it, my star. You lived. The boy closed his eyes, whispering in broken human words. Not doomed. The human smiled faintly, though his body shook with exhaustion. Not doomed, he echoed, his voice steady. Not while I breathe. Far away in the dark halls of a hidden station, the hunter leader slammed his fist against the wall. His voice thundered. The awakening has begun. The boy will not be hidden much longer. Prepare the armies. Prepare the chains. The shadows bowed, their voices one. Yes, master. And in the silence between stars, war drew closer, drawn to the boy who had just taken his first step toward his fate. The widow's ship limped through the black of space, its engines cracked. Its hull scarred inside, silence hung heavy, broken only by the boy's shallow breaths. The human sat at the controls, his eyes hard, his body heavy with exhaustion. He knew this quiet would not last. The hunters would come again, stronger, fiercer, endless, and when they came, there would be no place left to run. The widow watched her child sleep, her arms wrapped around him. Tears slid down her face, but her eyes carried a strange light. For the first time, she had seen her son resist the curse, even if only for a moment. For the first time, she dared to hope. She whispered, Maybe fate is not unbreakable. The human glanced at her, his voice low. Fate is a story people tell to keep others afraid. Stories can be changed. The widow looked at him long, then nodded faintly, though doubt still lived in her heart. Outside the viewport, the stars shifted, and a shadow fell across the light. The hunters had returned, but this time not a few ships, not a small band, an army, black ships blotting out the stars. Their engines burning like fire. The widow gasped, her arms tightening around her son. They have come with all they have. The human's jaw tightened, his voice steady. Then this is where we stand. The hunter's leader appeared on the screen, his helm hiding his face, his voice deep and cruel. Human, you fight for nothing. The child is ours, his blood is ours. Hand him over and die quickly. The human leaned forward, his eyes blazing. If you want him, you'll have to go through me first. The widow turned in shock, her voice breaking. You cannot fight them all. The human gave a faint smile, bitter but fierce. Maybe not, but I can make them bleed. The boy stirred, his glowing eyes opening slowly, his small voice whispering, Afraid. The human knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. His voice soft. I'm afraid too, kid. But we fight anyway. That's what makes us human. The hunters moved. Their ships surrounding the widow's vessel, weapons glowing. The human's fingers flew across the controls, guiding the small ship into the storm. Beams of light cut across the dark. Explosions shook the hull. Alarms screamed. The widow cried out, shielding her son as sparks rained from the ceiling. The boy clutched the human's hand, his glow spreading again. Brighter than before, the hunters fired. But the boy's power flared, bending the blasts away. Rocks and dust spun like shields. Space itself seemed to twist around him. The widow gasped, her tears falling. He cannot hold it. It will burn him alive, the human shouted. No, he can. He's stronger than the curse. Stronger than any prophecy. His words reached the boy. His glow steadied, the ship surged forward, breaking through the first wave of hunters. But the leader's ship loomed ahead, massive, armored. A fortress in the void. It opened fire, blasts tearing through the black. The small ship rattling like a dying heart. The widow screamed, her son clutched tight. The human's hands gripping the controls, he whispered, "This is it," and steered straight toward the giant vessel. The widow's eyes widened. You mean to die? The human shook his head, fire burning in his voice. I mean to live, and to make sure he lives too. The boy rose to his feet, his small body shaking, his glow burning brighter than ever before. Symbols lit the panels, the engines roared. The void itself seemed to bend. The widow cried out, "Stop! You will kill yourself." But the boy's eyes blazed, his voice clear for the first time. No, I choose. The power burst from him, a storm of light that struck the leader's ship. Tearing metal, cracking armor, breaking chains of shadow. The hunters screamed as their ships faltered. Fire bursting across the dark. The leader roared in rage, his helm cracking as the glow burned through him. The human pulled the ship clear as the great vessel tore apart, explosions painting the stars with flame. The boy collapsed, his glow fading. His body falling into silence, the widow caught him, her voice breaking. No, no, my star, stay. The human rushed to them, pressing his hand to the boy's chest. He whispered fiercely, You're not doomed. Not you, not tonight. Breathe, kid. Breathe. The boy stirred, his eyes opening weakly, a faint glow still alive inside them. He whispered one word, his voice soft but strong. Father, the widow gasped. Tears flooding her eyes, the human froze, his throat tight. Then he smiled, raw and broken but full of fire. Yeah, kid, I'm here, around them. The wreckage of the hunters drifted in silence, the army broken, their leader gone. For the first time, the stars looked open. Free, not full of chains. The widow held her child close, her voice soft. The prophecy is shattered. The human looked out at the endless sky, his voice steady. No prophecy decides who lives. Only we do, far away in the deeper dark. Other enemies still stirred. The galaxy had seen the boy's light, and others would come, but for now, they had won for now. They had broken fate itself. And as the small ship drifted into the starlight, the human, the widow, and the child were no longer prey, they were family. And their fight was only beginning.